So, my brother has officially decided I'm the most selfish person alive because I let his pregnant ex wife move in with me instead of handing my apartment over to him and the woman he left her for. I honestly cannot believe I'm even writing this because it still feels so ridiculous, but apparently, in my family's world, this all makes perfect sense. Let me back up. I grew up with one sibling, my brother Mark, who has always been the golden child. You know the type. Everything he did was special. Every mistake he made was brushed off. If he failed a class, it was the teacher's fault. If he crashed a car, it was the weather's fault. If he forgot something, it was everyone else's responsibility for not reminding him. Meanwhile, if I did literally anything less than perfect, I was criticized. So that's the baseline of our family dynamic. He gets coddled, I get told to be responsible and forgiving. It's been this way forever. Years ago, Mark married Sarah, and honestly, Sarah was way too good for him. She's one of the kindest, most patient people I've ever known. She put up with a lot from him and still somehow managed to keep the family together and happy. Everyone liked her. I liked her a lot. I actually felt like she was more my sister than Mark was my brother. She was the kind of person who would show up with soup if you were sick, who remembered birthdays, who made an effort with everyone. And then she got pregnant. She was so excited. She told me before she even told some other family members because she was just glowing with happiness. So, of course, this was the exact moment Mark decided to blow up his entire life. He started an affair with another woman, Jess, and not only did he cheat, he decided to leave Sarah completely while she was pregnant. He did not just want to sneak around or have a fling, he went full scorched earth and told Sarah he didn't want that life anymore. Next thing we knew, Jess is suddenly everywhere, living in their house, being introduced like she's the new wife, which eventually she actually became. He married her so fast it made everyone's head spin. And the family reaction? Absolute garbage. Instead of being horrified that their son had abandoned his pregnant wife, my parents and a bunch of other relatives actually went out of their way to make Jess feel welcome. They said things like, well, sometimes people fall out of love, and we need to give her a chance. Meanwhile, Sarah was just discarded. Pregnant, heartbroken, and discarded. I was the only one who really stayed in her corner. I couldn't stomach the way everyone just erased her. Things got worse because Mark basically kicked Sarah out of the house so Jess could settle in. Yes, he made his pregnant wife move out so his mistress turned new wife could decorate and nest. I still can't believe that actually happened, but it did. And of course, Sarah was devastated. She did not know where to go. She did not have the financial stability anymore because Mark had been controlling everything and suddenly she was just out. One night, she called me crying and asked if she could crash with me. She was apologetic, like she was a burden for even asking, which broke my heart. I live alone in a decent two-bedroom apartment. I have a stable job, and honestly, I did not even hesitate. Of course she could stay. I wanted her to stay. I wanted her to feel safe, so she moved in. And it was fine, better than fine. She was respectful, grateful, quiet, not demanding at all. I helped her with some appointments. We started figuring out baby stuff, and she finally seemed to be stabilizing. For me, it was not even a question of should I. It was the obvious and decent thing to do. Then Mark found out, and holy hell, the meltdown. He blew up my phone, accusing me of being selfish, of betraying him, of taking sides. He said that what I should have done, wait for it, was let him and Jess move into my apartment. That, apparently, would have been the fair and right thing to do. He literally thought I should hand over my apartment to him and his mistress and that Sarah, the pregnant woman he abandoned, should just figure it out. I actually laughed when he first said it because I thought it was a joke, but no, he was completely serious. When I did not give in, he spun it to the family. He told everyone I was punishing him, that I was holding grudges, that I was trying to destroy his happiness. And because he's the golden child, people actually listened. Next thing I knew, I'm being invited to this family meeting. I showed up thinking maybe someone had finally grown a spine and was going to call him out. Nope, it was an intervention for me. I sat there while person after person told me I needed to do the right thing, that I needed to support my brother in his new chapter, that Jess deserved a chance and that I was being unfair. They literally tried to guilt trip me into kicking out a pregnant woman so Mark could play house with his mistress in my apartment. I was sitting there in disbelief because how on earth was I the problem? How was I the one who needed to be corrected? The wild part is Sarah had been sitting quietly this whole time, just shrinking into herself until she finally broke down. She cried and told them everything, how Mark had left her, how scared she was, how financially unstable she was, how she was losing sleep worrying about bringing a baby into the world alone. She laid it all out, raw, emotional, messy. And suddenly the room shifted. It was like everyone finally saw her as a real person again. My aunt started crying, my cousins looked horrified, even my parents, who had been so smug and cold, looked ashamed. It was like the fog lifted. And instead of everyone lecturing me, they suddenly started offering Sarah help. Someone offered money and someone else knew a lawyer. Another said they'd set up a trust fund for the baby. It turned into this full-blown rally behind Sarah, and I was just sitting there watching the whole thing flip in front of my eyes. And then, of course, Mark lost his mind. He stormed out of the room screaming about betrayal. Jess followed him, looking like she wanted to disappear. He later sent me angry messages saying I had sabotaged him, poisoned the family against him, ruined his life, blah, blah, blah. According to him, if I just stayed neutral, none of this would have happened, which is hilarious because literally all I did was let Sarah stay in my guest room. That's it. The rest of this chaos is because of his own actions. Now the family is split. The people who were there at the intervention are all in on supporting Sarah. They're actually helping her get set up for the baby, helping her with legal stuff, checking in on her constantly. But the relatives who weren't there only know Mark's version of the story. And in his version, I am a bitter sibling who decided to punish him by siding with his ex. They think I'm dramatic, selfish, creating division, all the usual nonsense. Mark himself has cut me off completely, which honestly, fine. He's been calling me every name under the sun to anyone who will listen, telling everyone I ruined his life, when the reality is he's just finally facing a shred of consequences for being a terrible husband and father. But still, the constant accusations wear you down. Here's the part that makes me second guess myself. I do not regret helping Sarah at all. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. She needed a place, I had a place, and it felt like the obvious human thing to do. But the family drama has been so explosive that I can't help but wonder if I really did escalate things. If I'd said no to Sarah, maybe the family would still be comfortably ignoring everything. Maybe Mark would not be melting down. Maybe I would not be at the center of this tornado. People keep saying I should have stayed out of it, that I should have been neutral. And yeah, maybe helping her lit the fuse that blew everything open. But how on earth was I supposed to tell a pregnant woman with nowhere to go that she was not welcome? How would that have been the right thing? Letting her suffer so that Mark could play happy family with Jess in my apartment? That's not neutral, that's cruel. That's complicity. I just can't wrap my head around the logic that says doing nothing would have been better. So now here I am, caught between relatives who think I'm a saint and relatives who think I am the devil, with a brother who's decided I am his mortal enemy. Meanwhile, Sarah is finally stable, preparing for the baby, actually getting support, and I feel good about that. But the voice in my head still asks if I created this chaos by letting her move in. So, Reddit, tell me straight. Am I really the bad guy for letting my brother's pregnant ex-wife live with me instead of giving my apartment to him and the woman he cheated with? AITA? Update 1. So a bunch of people asked for an update, and oh boy, do I have one. When I made the original post, I honestly thought it would just be me screaming into the void about my trash family. But things have escalated in ways I did not expect. Buckle up, because the clownery has reached new heights. First off, Sarah is doing okay. Better than okay, actually. She's got lawyers now, thanks to my extended family, basically forming a legal GoFundMe committee at the intervention. She's also moved from just surviving to actually thriving. She's got baby supplies flooding in. My cousin set up a whole rotation for check-ins, and she's finally smiling again. I've never been more proud of her for standing up for herself. Now onto the mess. Remember how Mark stormed out of the intervention, screaming betrayal? Yeah, well, apparently he and Jess thought the best way to fix this image was to throw a big family barbecue at their house. Except, plot twist, it was not really a barbecue. It was basically a pity party / PR campaign. They invited everyone under the sun, plastered photos all over social media of them living their best life, and tried to spin it like they were the victims of evil scheming. Here's where it gets spicy. One of my cousins, who has zero filter and blesses us with chaos every time, went to this barbecue. Apparently Jess had decorated the backyard with a whole new beginnings theme. Balloons, banners, a giant chalkboard that said, "Our fresh start." Like, ma'am, you are literally living in the house that belonged to the woman you helped push out while she's pregnant. Maybe do not throw a themed party about it. Anyway, my cousin, being the petty genius she is, asked loudly in front of everyone if Sarah had seen the pictures yet, and then made a comment about how it must be nice to celebrate new beginnings while your divorce lawyer is drafting paperwork for abandonment. The silence was apparently deafening. Mark tried to laugh it off. Jess went pale, and the barbecue fizzled out fast after that. Half the family left early, but it does not stop there. Sarah's lawyer sent Mark official papers, and apparently Mark went absolutely nuclear. He tried to confront Sarah directly, but she did not engage. So guess who he came after? Me. He showed up at my apartment building, pounding on the door like a maniac, yelling about how I'd ruined his family and turned everyone against him. My neighbors called security because it looked like a scene from a bad reality show. I didn't even answer the door. I just sat inside eating chips while he melted down in the hallway. And then, cherry on top, Jess apparently had a breakdown after this. Word is, she did not sign up for all the drama, and she's been realizing that maybe being the homewrecker turned wife does not come with the glamorous life she thought it would. She's apparently been crying to my mom about how hard it is that everyone looks at her differently now. My mom actually tried to get me to feel sorry for Jess, like, sorry, I can't hear you over the sound of Sarah's prenatal vitamins that she should be paying for. Family gossip also says Jess's parents aren't thrilled either. They were already embarrassed about how their daughter ended up with a married man, but now that there's court stuff involved and the whole extended family knows the details, they've apparently started distancing themselves. So Jess is basically isolated with Mark, who is spiraling, while Sarah has an army of support around her. Karma is delicious sometimes. The funniest part, though, the same relatives who screamed at me during the intervention about needing to support Mark are now trying to rewrite history. They're acting like they always had Sarah's back. I literally had an aunt say, "Well, of course, we were never really on Mark's side." Ma'am, you were the loudest one telling me I needed to give him my apartment. Do not gaslight me now. Oh, and because this is Reddit and people will ask, no, Sarah is not moving out anytime soon. I told her she can stay as long as she needs. We've got the nursery half set up in the second bedroom now. Mark losing his mind over that is honestly just a bonus. Every time he hears she's still here, I can practically feel the vein in his forehead throbbing from miles away. At this point, I've stopped second guessing myself. The more Mark thrashes around, the more obvious it becomes that he's only mad because I did not roll over and let him bulldoze me the way everyone else has his whole life. The man really thought he could kick out his pregnant wife, move in with his mistress, and then convince his entire family to pressure me into handing him my apartment. And when it did not work, he imploded. So, yeah, I don't regret a single thing. Sarah's safe, supported, and finally looking forward to the baby instead of drowning in stress. Mark is reaping what he sowed. Jess is realizing being the other woman does not come with confetti and applause. And my family, for once, is seeing Mark for who he actually is. If this is me being selfish, then fine. I will wear that title proudly. Update 2. Okay, so apparently my life is a never-ending soap opera because things have gotten even wilder since my last post. I was not even planning to update again, but people keep asking, and honestly, the drama is too good not to share. First off, Sarah had the baby. A beautiful, healthy baby girl. I was there at the hospital with her because she asked me to be. And it was one of the most surreal, emotional experiences of my life. I'm not even the parent and I cried like an idiot. Sarah was incredible and the baby's perfect. She's got this head full of hair and the tiniest little fists that already look like she's ready to punch Mark in the face. Love her. You'd think the birth of a child would bring some joy, right? Maybe even get Mark to act like a human being for 5 minutes? Nope, of course not. Mark turned it into a circus. He showed up at the hospital with Jess, uninvited. Sarah did not want him there. He hadn't been involved in any appointments, hadn't provided any financial support. Nothing. He only found out she was in labor because of one of my relatives posted some good luck thing on Facebook and he saw it. Next thing we know, he's storming into the maternity ward, demanding to see his child. Security had to get involved because Sarah was literally in tears, saying she did not want him there. And instead of respecting that, he shouted about parental rights in the middle of the hallway. Jess was standing behind him, looking like she wanted to sink into the floor. It was humiliating. They eventually escorted him out, and Sarah was able to have some peace, but the audacity is just unreal. Then, not even 24 hours after the baby was born, Sarah's lawyer filed for emergency custody and child support. And let me tell you, the receipts they brought to court were brutal. They had screenshots of Mark admitting he did not want the baby. They had proof of him cutting her off financially. They had testimony from family members about him abandoning her. It was not a good look. The judge basically handed Sarah primary custody right then and there. Mark got supervised visitation, which means if he wants to see his daughter, someone else has to be present. The kicker? He's also been ordered to pay child support, and apparently it's more than he expected. The man was whining about how unfair it is that he has to fund Sarah's lifestyle. Like, bro, it's literally for your child's food and diapers. Meanwhile, Jess is unraveling. She's been calling my mom nonstop, crying about how she did not realize what she was signing up for and how everything is so negative now. Apparently, she thought marrying Mark would give her some fairy tale life, but instead, she's stuck with a broke man screaming about child support, while the whole family side eyes her at gatherings. Shocking, I know. One particularly spicy detail: Sarah gave the baby her last name, not Mark's. When Mark found out, he absolutely lost it. He said it was disrespectful and confusing. Sarah's lawyer calmly reminded him that since she has full custody and he's barely around, she had every right. The fact that the baby does not share his last name is driving him insane, and honestly, it's kind of hilarious. Now, onto the family drama. Remember how some of my relatives tried to pressure me at the intervention? Well, those same people are now kissing up to Sarah so hard, it's embarrassing. They show up with baby gifts, post sappy things on Facebook about how family means everything, and act like they've been in Sarah's corner the whole time. It's blatant revisionist history. My aunt even had the nerve to say, "We always knew Mark was not ready to be a father." Like, really? Because 3 months ago you were telling me I needed to evict Sarah so Mark and Jess could move into my apartment. The best part, though, Sarah does not forget. She's polite, but she's not letting them rewrite the story. She knows exactly who had her back and who did not. She thanks them for their gifts, smiles for the photos, but when it comes to her inner circle, it's me, a couple of cousins, and the relatives who actually showed up when she was at her lowest. Everyone else is on probation, basically. As for me, I've been promoted from selfish sibling to honorary co-parent, at least according to how much time I'm spending with Sarah and the baby. My apartment has turned into baby central. I've learned how to swaddle, I've changed diapers, I've done midnight bottle duty. I'm exhausted, but in the best way. And honestly, seeing Sarah finally relax and bond with her baby makes it worth it. Mark, on the other hand, is spiraling harder than ever. He sent me this long ranting text about how I've stolen his family and how Sarah and I are trying to replace him, which, no, dude, you did that all by yourself when you walked out on your pregnant wife. He's also convinced the baby will hate him one day because of what Sarah's telling her, when in reality, the baby will probably hate him because kids grow up and see through bullshit. Oh, and the cherry on top. Jess apparently went to a family dinner without Mark because he's too stressed, and spent the entire time complaining about that she does not get enough attention. She actually said it's hard for her because everyone's so focused on the baby right now. Like, yeah, that's usually how it works when an actual child is born. So you're not the main character anymore. At this point, I don't even feel conflicted anymore. When I first posted, I was second guessing myself, wondering if I was selfish for letting Sarah stay with me. But now, watching Mark's house of cards collapse while Sarah builds a stable, happy life for herself and her daughter, I know I did the right thing. I'd do it again 100 times. Mark is furious. Jess is crumbling. The family is scrambling and Sarah is winning, and me? I'm just sitting here rocking the baby to sleep, eating popcorn, and waiting for whatever disaster Mark creates next. Update 3. So this is probably my last update because honestly at this point the story has gone from depressing to hilarious to just plain exhausting. I feel like I've been living inside a bad reality TV show, and now the season is finally wrapping up. But since a lot of people asked, here's what's gone down since my last post. Spoiler: it's been a wild ride. First off, Sarah and the baby are thriving. That's the most important thing. The baby's healthy, growing fast, and has this little smile that lights up the whole room. Sarah has adjusted to motherhood like a champ. She's tired, sure, but she's happy. She's got her lawyer, handling the legal stuff. She's got support from me and the cousins who actually give a damn. And she's slowly but surely building her own independent life. We still live together, but we've started talking about her finding a place of her own eventually. Not because I want her to leave, but because she wants to stand on her own 2 feet again. And honestly, I think she'll kill it. Now, onto the messy part. Mark is officially in full meltdown mode. The man has managed to torch his own reputation so badly that even people who used to worship him can't defend him anymore. The court hearings for custody and child support have been brutal. Sarah's lawyer is a shark, and Mark keeps showing up unprepared and making a fool of himself. One time he actually tried to argue that he couldn't pay child support because Jess needs new furniture. The judge nearly laughed him out of the room. Another time he complained that Sarah was poisoning the baby against him because she gave the baby her last name. The judge literally reminded him that the baby can't even talk yet. It was embarrassing. Every hearing has been one more nail in the coffin of his golden child status. Meanwhile, Jess is unraveling right alongside him. Apparently their finances are a disaster. Between child support, legal fees, and Mark's terrible spending habits, they're drowning. I've heard through the family grapevine that Jess has been pawning jewelry and selling furniture online just to make ends meet. She's been crying to anyone who will listen about how unfair it is that she's stuck in this situation. But the sympathy is pretty thin these days. Even her own parents have started pulling away, and rumor is they've told her flat out that she made her bed. The family dynamic has shifted so hard it's almost funny. The same people who lectured me during the intervention now act like they've always been Team Sarah. My aunts, who once begged me to let Mark and Jess live in my apartment, now bring casseroles and baby clothes to my place like they've been allies all along. My parents, who were initially cold to Sarah, have suddenly rediscovered their grandparent instincts and can't get enough of the baby. It's infuriating sometimes because I remember exactly what they said when this all started. But at the same time, Sarah appreciates the help, so I bite my tongue. Mark, of course, sees all this as proof that I stole his family. He's obsessed with the idea that I've turned everyone against him. He's told anyone who will listen that I've been scheming from day one, plotting to replace him, which is ridiculous, but I can't lie. Every time he says it, a tiny, petty part of me laughs, because if by replace he means being a decent human being who shows up for Sarah and the baby, then sure, I guess I did replace him. The most dramatic moment came a couple of weeks ago at a family birthday party. It was one of those big gatherings where everyone shows up. Sarah came with the baby, and of course everyone crowded around her. Mark and Jess showed up late, and the second they walked in, the attention shifted right back to Sarah and the baby. Mark tried to insert himself into the moment, but Sarah was not having it. She handed the baby to me and walked away. The look on Mark's face was priceless, like he just realized he was no longer the center of the universe. Jess looked like she wanted to scream. Later in the evening, Mark tried to make a scene by demanding to hold the baby. Sarah calmly told him, no, not unless the visitation was supervised as per the court order. He exploded. He shouted about his rights and how Sarah was using the system against him. The entire room went silent, and finally, my dad, the same man who once defended Mark's every move, told him to shut up and sit down. That was the moment I realized Mark's golden child era was officially over. And since then, Mark and Jess have been more or less isolated. They still show up sometimes, but the warm welcome they used to get is gone. People tolerate them out of obligation, but all the attention goes to Sarah and the baby, and honestly, watching Mark stew in the background while Sarah gets all the love has been the pettiest, most satisfying thing I've ever experienced. As for Jess, the cracks in her relationship with Mark are showing big time. She's been complaining that he's different now, that he has responsibilities, which is like, girl, what did you expect? You thought you were stealing Prince Charming, but all you got was a man child who can't handle bills or stress. There are rumors, again, family grapevine is strong, that she's been considering leaving him, and honestly, I would not be surprised if she bails once she realizes the financial mess is not going away. And the final piece of spice? Mark tried to guilt trip me again. He sent me this long message about how I've betrayed him and how siblings are supposed to support each other no matter what. He said he can't believe I'd choose Sarah over him. I didn't respond because at this point, what is there to say? He made his bed, he cheated, he abandoned his pregnant wife. He tried to manipulate the family, and now he's mad that it all blew up in his face. So where does that leave me? Honestly, in a better place than when this started. Sarah and I have become closer than ever. I love my niece more than I thought possible. My apartment is louder and messier, but it feels like home in a way it never did before. The family is messy and hypocritical, but at least most of them are finally rallying around the right person. And Mark, well, Mark is reaping what he sowed. When I made the first post, I was second guessing myself, wondering if I was selfish for letting Sarah stay with me. Now, after everything that's happened, I know for sure I was not. If anything, I was the only one willing to do the bare minimum of the right thing, and I will never regret that. So yeah, that's the saga. Sarah and the baby are good. I'm good. Mark and Jess are imploding. And for once in my life, I do not feel like the crazy one in the family. If this whole thing taught me anything, it's that sometimes doing the right thing is messy, dramatic, and full of fallout. But in the end, it's still worth it. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.